Good evening, this is Maestro Cretella with the Dawn of War 2 Retribution Elite Modcast. Today I have a faction war. We have Tyranids against Space Marines. First we have Kvek, as this Tyranid Hive Tyrant, a very tough, tanky melee hero, can be upgraded to become even more tough and tanky. His teammate is Super Hooper, playing as this Tunneling Ravener Alpha, who will make tunnels that all of his teammates can use, and that's going to give the Tyranids a lot of mobility to get around the map. Finally, as this stealthy Lictor Alpha, we have ReaverFeaver. The Lictor Alpha is a very powerful melee hero, not tanky, but definitely has damage output, and he can also infiltrate. On the other side, representing the Imperium of Man, first we have Maestro Cretella, playing as this Pink Angel's Force Commander, a tanky melee hero, can be suppressed and knocked down, but still very good, very pink right in this case. My teammate is Thunder, as the Ultramarines Apothecary. I blanked out a little bit on the chapter of this, but the Apothecary is a healing commander, not a very good fighter, but a very good healer. Right now his healing equipment is all bloody though. Finally, we have Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine as this taxicab yellow Techmarine. The Techmarine is a ranged hero who can build turrets, supports vehicles well, also does very good range damage, and has a gun for every occasion. Alright, so it looks like the Techmarine is about to engage right here, getting a little too close to the Hormagaunts, but the Hormagaunts are not really fighting him. They finally do turn around, but we already have shotguns out for Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine. We do have a double Hormagaunt build. This is, yeah, Kvek over here with a double Hormagaunt brood, so that's just a lot of melee to deal with. Too much melee, basically to the extent that Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine can't just rely on kiting. He needs some melee counters in the form of that shotgun scout. And that Techmarine is kind of just shooting stuff around. He is getting a lot of experience, already halfway to level 2. That's how many models he's been bleeding off these Termagants and Hormagaunts. So good for him. It does do a lot of range damage. Scouts are coming to support that Techmarine. These are the Ultramarine Scouts from Thunder. Over here, let's see, how are my Pink Angels doing? My Scouts are actually just scouting around, have also already been upgraded to shotguns. It looks like my Force Commander as well as my Tax were forced off though, and I'm now getting a Devastator Marine Squad, so I can control melee with that suppression. Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine is also getting a Devastator Marine Squad. Thunder, on the other hand, getting Assault Space Marines, which is a choice I do not entirely agree with. Assault Space Marines are mainly a disruption unit to counter ranged units as well as setup teams. They will lose to most dedicated melee squads, and certainly with many of the players on the Tyranid team having multiple dedicated melee squads, they're going to counter those Assault Space Marines pretty well. That being said, although the Devastator is certainly at least a better choice on paper, the Devastator comes with some risk of its own, mainly that if some of those melee units actually get a flank on the Devastator, or they actually get into range, they can potentially wipe the Devastator outright, even from full health. Basically, if you have like 2 of these Hormagaunt broods getting in on that Devastator, it can be a wipe. So we actually have 4 units on the field for all Tyranid players. They do have more than us Space Marine players. We are all pretty short on power. It might be going for tier 3. Techmarine gets flashed up, and now we have a big engagement going down. Assault Space Marines are jumping in. Unfortunately, most of the Tyranid players look like they're here. The Devastator is set up, but unfortunately, it does not have line of sight. Apparently, these rocks over here are actually blocking line of sight. Finally, the Tyranids move into line of sight of that Devastator, and it starts suppressing over here. Now, I think, unfortunately, what happened was that all 3 Tyranid players were here in the middle, and the only Space Marine players there were Thunder and Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine. I was not quite supporting. I was off in a different place. I finally tried to come and actually do a flank suppression with my Devastator Marine Squad, but I lose them for that. And that was actually just the power we saw right there, where I had some Hormagaunts get in on my Devastator Marine Squad, and I just lost them outright. Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine floating a lot of resources. Now, defending that power farm, I think they will be able to defend that power farm, though. The Hive Tyrant does get in range of the Devastators, but now with 4 different ranged units focusing down that Hive Tyrant, he will need to get out of there. Has been upgraded to the improved Synapse, will improve the health of Tyranid units in range, and also has the Warp Field, basically an energy shield. Over here, the Pink Angels are engaging with the Tyranids, but now I'm even getting doubled over here. Force Commander stays in there for quite a while, using Battle Cry to knock down melee units. Going to get very close to dying right here, though. Down to 100 health, 60, 50, but actually gets out of there. And Flesh Hook, I'm guessing, is on cooldown, so was not able to get that Force Commander. Now, I lost a Devastator. I was not around to support my teammates. I did get a full Gen Bash off, though, so that is at least one of the advantages we have right now. The Space Marines, the Imperium of Man. Even though, at least on the fighting, we do seem to be losing at this point. Devastator suppresses those Hormagaunts, which is great and all, but I mean, the Hormagaunts are just kind of walking straight up to the Devastator. Now, those Devastators are very helpful for controlling those Tyranid units, but I feel like because there are so many of them, and basically because there are so many of them, the Devastator doesn't even really control. I mean, it controls the Tyranids, but it can't stop them. It can only stall them. I have replaced my Devastator, and I even got a second Scout. Basically, we're up against a ton of melee. Now, these Tyranid players could have gone for... The most typical Tyranid build is to get 2 Termagants, but at least 2 of these Tyranid players chose to get double Hormagaunts. All 3 have Warrior Broods, and then at least 2 of those commanders are very good in melee, and to be honest, even the Ravener Alpha can function well enough in melee. Basically, we just have so much melee to deal with that we really need to be able to... We really need melee counters. Certainly, with these big-ass blobs, we can't just kite. We need to hit them with shotguns. Scout Squad gets down to 1 model. That's one of my initiates. Gets down to 47 health. Very close. I have a Flamer on my Scout Squad. Not on my Scout Squad. On my Tactical Marine Squad. So, Tyranid players do have the middle VP, so they are going to be winning on the VPs. In fact, it's 494 VPs to 282. So, certainly a significant VP lead for the blue team. We haven't been able to do much. At best, we've been able to keep these Tyranids at bay. It actually feels very fluffy in the sense that we're fielding the finest warriors and weapons of the Imperium of Man, but we're just getting overrun by these sheer numbers. I mean, look at how many units the Tyranid players have, and look at how many units the Space Marine players have. Over here, the Force Commander is running around solo. That is not the best use of the Force Commander. I'm not even sure why I'm doing that, but I'm running him back. These are Super Hoopers units. Seem to be positioning themselves so that they can get a flank. I do have my Force Commander in here. He will have a word with them, but ultimately he cannot take on all of these units by himself, especially not once having trouble with those English words. Not once he's getting hit by the Toxin Sacks and getting snared. Tactical Marines lose a model and do have to go. Looks like we're going to have maybe a big engagement going down here. But I mean, look at how many Tyranids we have. They're getting buffed by the Synapse of the Hive Tyrant. Hive Tyrant now with Crushing Claw is going to be doing heavy melee damage. Luckily, wow, oh, those were Rippers. It looks like Lean Mean Bullshitting Machine has a Plasma Cannon Devastator. A nice Plasma Cannon shot should do wonders to disrupt that blob. Unfortunately, it actually misses most of those Hormagaunts, and we don't really... Alright, we have a Devastator set up in the back, suppressing most of those Tyranid units on approach, but some kind of call-in. Look at those shotgun blasts, just what we have to do. Spore Mines right in the middle of the Space Marine blob. Look at how many units just got suppressed there. A very good move, and too much blobbing up from the Space Marine players. Not that there's a whole lot of room here to not blob. And Thunder getting very close to losing his Assault Space Marines. They're getting knocked down several times. I got support with my Scouts, though, knocking over a ton of units at once. But those Assault Space Marines really do have to go. Even those Devastators, again, those Devastators, they can't stop the Tyranids. They're only slowing them down. Alright, so it looked like Lean Mean Bullshitting Machine's Devastator had to go. Mine is on the field now supporting, but it's getting flanked right here by the Ravener Alpha. Ravener Alpha does have the Corrosive Devourer. I feel like that's a no-brainer upgrade against Space Marines. Is a plasma weapon, so it's going to be doing bonus damage to attacks as well as Devastators. And then it actually has an ability that can allow it to function as AV, so it will do decently against this Razorback, as well as this Dreadnought that I just bought. Now I actually have my attacks kind of not running around with the main force, because they can, with their Flamer, they can bash this power farm. Looks like Super Hooper is answering with a power bash of his own here. Hormagaunts, just as a base melee unit, have high DPS, so they will be good for bashing generators, although not quite as good as Flamer attacks. Now I put a Dread out on the field. Someone recently actually said in a chat that if you're playing Tyranids against Space Marines, or Space Marines against Tyranids, you should just get a Dread, and that will answer your questions. Any questions you have in that matchup will be answered by this Dreadnought. Now, that commentary was probably more about 1v1 than 3v3. It's probably going to be a lot more risky to use a Dread in 3v3 with three Tyranid players who can get some kind of AV. Pushing forward with the Dread, actually just straight up pushing, using that Dread to push, use that Emperor's Fist. Unfortunately, I probably could have saved it for when more of those units got in range. Wow, I mean, I did some Shotgun Blast. We are now suppressing the Tyranids. Some Plasma Cannon shots are going in. And this Dread, although he is taking damage, he is also doing a lot of damage to the Tyranid blob. And we're actually pushing them back. Throwing some grenades in, but my own scouts get naded. I think possibly by my own scouts. This Dread now in a lot of trouble, getting chased down by a Hive Tyrant who is very tanky, as well as some Warriors that have Adrenal Glands, so they will be doing heavy melee damage. This Dreadnought now at 62 health, 51. Very close. 39, but those Warriors are overextending, and those Warriors may actually go down with all that range fire, and yes, they do in fact go down. So Kvek just lost a lot of units pushing hard for that Dreadnought, and it did not pay off for him. So with the push from my Dread, we were able to take this middle VP. That means we're finally going to be able to get that middle VP. The problem is we're also getting back capped, so we're not going to have a 2-cap. It's still going to be a 2-cap against us, except for the fact that no, not me. Thunder is back capping with his scouts over here. But with that push, we did manage to win the middle. Now, Diomedes right here is full of BS. He is fully upgraded. I accidentally bought Armor of Alacrity. I did not want that, but I certainly did want the Thunder Hammer and the Teleporter Pack. I had actually considered saving up for the Terminator armor on the Force Commander, but I realized that this Thunder Hammer was really what we need, and by we, I really meant like the entire team. Just the disruption you get from that Thunder Hammer is really good, and we just need it. It's probably a better melee counter than just about everything else combined that we have, the Devastators and the Shotgun Scouts. And of course it does run out eventually, but it's been very helpful. Looks like Thunder is using the mobility that granted by his Razorback to get some units back here, chase off the Hormagaunts that were back capping, and then get the cap for us. And now we finally have a 2-cap. Still 460 VPs in favor of the blue team and only 100 for us. This Lictor Alpha just standing there, infiltrated, has the Corrosive Claws, which increases the Lictor's offensive power. So units take more damage once they get hit by the Corrosive Claws. A Zoanthrope out on the field for Super Hooper. Tyranid artillery unit, very long range, very good against Devastator squads, as well as plenty of other units. Unfortunately, Lean Mean Bullshitting Machine does get flanked by Tyranids right here, and his Devastator Marine squad simply did not stand a chance. And again, that's part of the disadvantage of getting Devastators against all these races that have such overwhelming melee. Basically that if the melee can actually get a flank on the Devastator, they will just straight up wipe it. Assault Space Marines jumping into a huge melee blob. I think that will be the end of the Assault Space Marines. Took a blast from that Zoanthrope. and is now just getting absolutely murdered. One Assault Space Marine member actually gets out of there alive. And now we also have a Predator. Look at all those shotgun blasts, the Emperor's Fist going down. Some kind of Tyranid unit went down. Unfortunately, my Dreadnought is now in a lot of trouble, taking a lot of damage, gets snared by the Zoanthrope, and there goes my Dreadnought. So my Dreadnought did not last terribly long. It did do well in that one push that came before, but I think I was just trying something out based on advice that someone told me, or actually it didn't even tell me directly. It was a conversation that I was just watching in the channel. So I tried it out. Got a Dreadnought against Tyranids. Worked out in one push. Lost it in another engagement. Although, again, they were probably talking about a 1v1. Obviously, team games are very different. There's always going to be more everything in teams. More AV, more ranged units, more vehicles. 2 Tyranid heroes go down right there, so certainly some losses for the Tyranid players. Now, the Tyranid players are starting to lose on the engagements, but they are definitely staying in the game by focusing on this backcapping. That Super Hooper being very sneaky, getting those backcaps in. Unfortunately, at least we are maybe a little slow on those backcaps. I don't know what we could do to prevent the backcaps. I mean, theoretically, we could put a Devastator squad on that backcap, even a Devastator Plasma squad, but we really need those heavy weapons to support us in the middle right here. I'm not really sure what the best answer is. I think actually the best answer to dealing with that backcapping is actually just Thunder, using the Razorback's mobility to send his units there whenever he sees that we're getting backcaps. Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine floating massive resources. I actually get Terminators. Now, originally I said that I wanted to try to get Terminator armor on the Force Commander. I actually wanted to get the Heavy Flamer to roast a bunch of Tyranids in an area. Instead, I'm going to do the same thing, except with regular Terminators. Now, it's going to be a little riskier with the regular Terminators, because in order to get them into that close range, I might need to teleport them in, and they can't retreat, whereas the Force Commander obviously can. I do have a sneaky Ravener Alpha going around, fully upgraded, regenerate, damage Synapse, as well as the Corrosive Devourer. Tyranid players are going to make a push. We also have a Doom of Malantai for ReaverFeaver. I do have that Cleansing Flame absolutely roasting Tyranids. A ton of squads dying. Look at all the squads that died from that Cleansing Flame. Now, the Terminators are taking a lot of damage. Need to get out of there. One Terminator model dies, but the Force Commander is in here. A ton of losses for the Tyranids. A horrible engagement for them, as well as this Force Commander was in here. Used Battlecry to knock down some units. Unfortunately, I'm going to lose my Force Commander now. Got knocked down by friendly Plasma Cannon Fire, and then just got shanked by 4 Tyranid swords. It kind of seems ridiculous to me that a Tyranid unit has swords. Alright, the Venom Cannon Carnifex just staying right there. It does destroy that Razorback, but I think it will not get away from this Predator. And it does, in fact, it does not get away from that Predator. So a Carnifex down, a Razorback down, which I just said that the Razorback would be the best answer that we would have to basically the Super Hooper's backcapping. As it is, looks like Thunder is actually just keeping some of his units over here, so he will be able to defend against the backcap this time. Now, Lean, Mean, Bullshitting Machine has one of the biggest floats I have ever seen. He could queue up well, he has the resources to queue up a Land Raider and drop Terminators. He doesn't have the pop to do that. He also has enough resources to do an orbital bombardment, and then he would, after the orbital bombardment, he would probably kill enough Tyranids that he could drop Terminators right after. In this case, I think maybe that this time the Hormigaunt squad may have actually been wiped. Yeah, Super Hooper lost his Hormigants. So, after having such a massive VP deficit, we're doing quite well now. The Imperium of Man, it looks like we might actually repel the Tyranid invasion. This map, by the way, I realized that I forgot to mention it. It is called Soprony Brood Lairs. A weird name. Basically just looks like a Tyranid-infested planet. We do have a lot of those Tyranid trees that are not even... Like, you can't even damage them, or they can't be destroyed, but they also don't give any buffs or anything. They're just part of the map. And the map is actually getting very red. The Ravener Alpha is just bashing some generators. not actually doing all that well. Now, obviously the Tyranids have definitely lost a lot of units. That being said, they've still got definitely some heavy hitters on the field. Doom of Malantai for ReaverFeaver, the new super unit in the elite mod, basically a super zoanthrope. Does not have the range of a zoanthrope, but it is tougher and it has several abilities that can apparently do a lot of damage. We still have a Swarm Lord for Super Hooper and a Carnifex. Very powerful super units with vehicle armor. It takes a lot of anti-vehicle firepower to take them out. Force Commander in a ton of trouble. Might go down here, getting hit by a lot of huge super units. One of the things is that Kvek and Super Hooper also have Lictors. So those Lictors could be acting as replacement backcappers for those lost Hormagaunts. And they're actually going to be quite a bit better as backcappers. They're going to be a lot better at fighting off any of the units that are there to defend against the backcap, and then they can also infiltrate. They will do more damage, and they won't even bleed unless they just die outright. So, I mean, we even have just warriors and gene stealers coming to support. Basically, it's actually just an assault on this VP in the back. We even have the Lictor Alpha, so a lot of units coming over here. Thunder is now committing his forces. He's even moving his Land Raider. In fact, so that's actually also drawing some of our units away from the middle. Already a back cap by the Lictor, and to be honest, there are actually too many Tyranids and too many very powerful Tyranids for Thunder to be able to repel these units by himself. He's gonna need some help. So Lean Mean Bullshitting Machine is actually committing his tank. I think maybe... Oh, so pretty smart by the Tyranids players. They may have actually... They probably just realized that they drew so many units away from the middle that that was actually going to leave the middle quite vulnerable. And there are now 2 super units in the middle, and they're taking a lot of infantry units out. Plasma Cannon Devastator, level 3 Plasma Cannon Devastator goes down for Lean Mean Bullshitting Machine. Also comes very close to losing that Scout Squad. And now with having pushed us out of the middle, they can also start capturing the middle. And we finally do force the Tyranids away from this VP, but we also need to cap it. It's been captured in favor of the Tyranids. A Orbital Bombardment goes down, though. I think that's actually from me, basically just to stall that VP. Stall that VP cap. And another Lictor is back here, preventing these attacks from capturing that VP. And they can't capture, they cannot fight off a Lictor by themselves. The Lictor is that powerful. Tyranid super units still just running a train in here. I do now have a Las Cannon Predator of my own to do a lot of damage to that Swarm Lord, as well as the Carnifex. Now, the Hormagaunts and Termagants were going for a back cap. I do put my Terminators in. I think they actually were using Cleansing Flame there, but the graphic effect did not happen. It looks like the Zoanthrope is in here. It probably will get killed. Yes, does get killed by that Orbital Bombardment. And unfortunately, that's going to be the game for us. Thunder not able to cap this back VP. So that is going to be it for us. I try to start capturing that middle back, but that is the end of the game. I want to say that the Tyranids overran the Space Marines, but actually in the end, the Tyranids did not overrun the Space Marines. They actually outsmarted the Space Marines. They were overrunning the Space Marines for a while until most of them actually got slaughtered. What they did then was they started backcapping even more. And that was actually very smart to send a pretty strong force to this back VP, and then that drew away too many units from this middle, and we couldn't adequately defend the middle. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this faction war. Have a good night.